Salve, galera! A gente está começando aqui mais um episódio do Bebendo Marca, dessa vez um projeto especial, junto com a Braserva, junto com o Cervejar.com, junto com a Brasil Brau. Então, estou muito feliz de participar aqui no meio da Brasil Brau e a gente vai trazer alguns conteúdos muito interessantes para vocês, começando agora com o Steve Parr. Eu já vou começar pedindo desculpas pelo meu inglês macarrônico, meu inglês que está um pouco enferrujado. E agora eu vou passar para o inglês e a gente vai receber aqui Steve. Steve, first of all, I'm sorry about my English. It's not
sorry
that good.
about my Portuguese.
So thanks a lot for your time being here. So, Steve, can you talk about a little bit about your background? Like what you used to do? How did you become part of this beer market?
Yeah, I got my starts like many professional brewers. I was a home brewer.
Okay.
So when I was at university, I started making my own beer at home. And I was actually studying finance at the time. And I was working for an investment bank. And I saw a job opportunity to internship with the Brewers Association, which is based in Boulder, Colorado. And so I quit my job at the bank and I took the internship, which did not pay any money. But I built a relationship with the industry. And so after I graduated college, I maintained my relationship with the Brewers Association. And I started about 13 years ago working for the American Homebrewers Association, creating resources for the homebrewing community inside of the United States, but specifically on the business development side. So working with homebrew supply shops, so the small businesses around the U.S. that supply malt and hops and yeast to the amateur brewer. And as I kind of grew and developed my knowledge about the industry, I started to work on our external export development. So this is where we help U.S. breweries do marketing outside of the United States for the purpose of exports. And so in 2017, I took over the role of managing our export development program. And now I'm the Director of International Relations at the Brewers Association. The Brewers Association is the organization that works to promote and protect American craft brewers in the United States through our work in government affairs and political advocacy. We put on events like the Great American Beer Festival, the Craft Brewers Conference, and the World Beer Cup. We also create resources for brewers on technical brewing, sustainability, and safety, and education on things like running a small business, hiring, creating your own HR departments. So the work that I do is it's unique because I look outside of the U.S., where most of the work we do is inside of the United States. But over the years, I've just built my network with brewers and the Brewers Association to promote and grow this incredible community of craft beers.
Okay, nice. It's your first time in Brazil?
This is my second time in Brazil.
Second time?
I was here in 2018 to judge a competition down in Blumenau.
Okay. How did you like it?
It was fantastic. At that time, it was run by Amanda Rittenbach, who I know is a leader in this industry and an incredible thought leader and very knowledgeable about beer and beer flavor. And so she introduced me to the Brazilian beer markets. We've also been involved in working with Gilberto Tarantino for decades to connect the U.S. beer community with Brazil. But 2018 was my first time. And I was only in Sao Paulo for about 12 hours. Oh, yeah. On this trip, I'm here for about 7 days. So I've had much more time to experience, get out to the breweries, judge the Copa Cerveja Brazil that's run by Braserva, and sampling some of the unique Brazilian hops, as well as the new Brazilian style, Manipuera, which is really interesting to me. So it's really cool to see the innovation and the unique ingredients that Brazilian craft brewers have accessible to them as they define their own spot within this global craft beer community.
Talking about innovation, I just watched your speech here, and you talk a lot about how the future, how the innovation is going to be important to the future, and you said something that impacted me. That you said that innovation is not about only a marketing process, but it's about a business process, right?
It's not just about the products. It's a business process.
Okay. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I think the quote was innovation, or it was, if you can make someone think differently about something, that is innovation. And that's how craft beer got its start in the United States. They introduced something new. They created a new way to think about beer. And now as the U.S. beer industry has become much more competitive, we have to rethink what innovation looks like. I think in a competitive markets, it's easy to chase trends. You see the brewery down the street growing because they might do something. And so then you copy that. But innovation does not work the same for everybody. Innovation has to be tied into your brands, into the products that you make, into your marketing strategy. And you have to consider where you are selling your beer and specifically who your customers are. So innovation is different for different businesses.
So the future for the brewers, you said something about being local. How do you see that to the future?
The importance of being local?
Yeah.
Now, I think the message is that you shouldn't only try to be a local brewery. There are many breweries that have succeeded in growing and expanding their distribution footprints, not just in their home city or their home states or across the country or even globally. But it is very easy to spread yourself thin, to not have the resources to really supply and stay relevant in those foreign markets if you don't have the resources to do the marketing, to connect with the consumer, and ensure that by staying local, you can keep your business strong before you start to grow and expand. And so you should be incrementally growing and not expanding too fast. But for craft beer, for many of them, it is hyper-local. It's about your home market. And I think one of the messages was, if you're selling, for example, a Brasil Brau Pale Ale, that Brasil Brau Pale Ale would not sell as well at the Brau BDL convention in Germany. So you need to think about the branding that you put on there, the market that you're catering to, and appealing to those markets if you're going to expand, and ensure that you have the resources, the staff, and the marketing knowledge before you do that. Because there are many examples of breweries that have expanded outside of their local markets, and it has cost them more when they thought that there was opportunity.
Okay. So, looking to the numbers of the Brazilian marketing and comparing to the American market, we are not, I believe that, and we are not as mature as the U.S. market it is. Our market is newer. But what are the lessons that we can learn looking to the American market and looking to the future? What can the Brazilian market learning from the U.S. that can help us in right now?
I can think of a couple different things. First is on the customer and the consumer. From the very beginning, the Brewers Association actually got its starts as the Home Brewers Association. So we were always focused on the end consumer and specifically the home brewer, but making sure that there was an educated and passionate consumer base that was excited about the craft brewing industry. If the consumer is not there demanding the beer, it's going to be very hard to sell it. And so I'm not familiar enough with what initiatives exist here in Brazil, but focusing on the customer and creating awareness and education about beer styles and elevating the image of beer and the occasions that it can be consumed in, for example, at sporting events, at the dinner table alongside high-quality food, and presenting that image of beer so that the consumer can become more aware and passionate about it has helped us with our success. Another piece has been the United States craft beer industry has always found a way to collaborate and communicate and cooperate with each other. In 2005, the Brewers Association evolved because we had two competing associations in the United States that claimed to be the association that represented the U.S. beer industry. And it really wasn't until those two associations merged, because we were always on the same team, we always had the same goal, but we were competing with each other. The brewers had to pay dues to different organizations, but when we came together, we were a unified voice. And as a unified voice, with all of the breweries that were supporting the Brewers Association, we were able to invest in important things like quality, like government affairs and changing distribution laws, further consumer education, and creating technical brewing resources that helped breweries become better businesses and made better beer. And so I think that finding ways to work together, rather than view the brewery down the street as your competitor, but as your ally, is one way that the Brazilian craft beer community can really, really find growth because in the late 1990s, when the U.S. craft beer scene saw its first decline in sales, there was a lot of infighting. Brewers were denigrating each other, talking poorly, and all the consumers saw was something that was not very appealing. The consumer's appeal of craft beer, and some of it comes from that collaboration and community that it's created. And so I think if Brazilian craft brewers can find ways to work more together, you're going to see some more growth.
Excuse me, I will say something in Portuguese, okay? To the
No
camera.
problem.
Então aqui, gente, tem um insight muito legal e é uma coisa que a gente já repetiu aqui algumas vezes, né? Da união das cervejarias. Então, esse aprendizado que o mercado americano, que está na nossa frente, né? Numa questão de maturidade, eu acho que é um insight muito, muito forte e muito importante para a gente realmente prestar atenção no quanto a gente está dando importância no fato das cervejarias estarem unidas, no fato, né, das associações estarem unidas. Então, eu acho que o Steve traz um aprendizado muito, muito grandioso aqui. Então, eu pedi licença para ele para falar em português, que eu acho que vale muito a pena. I'm just saying that this is something that it's happening in Brazil. Everyone trying to survive. So, how much are we paying attention in being together? How the question to the camera was like, how we are doing that right, and we have lessons from you. What would you say to a new brand, somebody that, because you have the experience from the home brewing in Brazil, there's a lot of people right now. They had prizes as home brewing. They are famous as home brewing. They are trying to do the movement to become a brand. What would you say to those guys that they are in right now trying to launching this new brewery?
Yeah, I would say, years ago, the message that we said to new brewers was the focus on quality. We had a problem when there were thousands of new breweries opening in the United States every year. And again, going back to the 1990s, one of the reasons we also saw that decline was because people were getting into craft beer for perhaps not the right reasons. They were focusing on just making money, and the beers were not so good. And as they say, you only really get one chance to make a first impression. And so people were trying craft beer for the first time, and they didn't like what they tasted because the beer was not very good. And so now that the quality has improved and we have great beers, the message has changed a little bit for the new brewers because the environment has become more competitive. Many people have great beer. And you look at the shelves, and there are so many different options available. And so the message now is you're making great beer, yes, but you need to focus on the business. And so what are you doing to make sure that your processes will allow you to be profitable? What does your brand mean in terms of what consumers are looking for? Is it just something that you think is interesting and cool? Or does it actually resonate with the customers that you're trying to appeal to? And tying that into your marketing strategy, the beers that you produce and the styles, and thinking more about the business process of running a brewery in addition to making quality beer.
Okay. And what about the brewers that they are already in the market? What can you say to them as we are at this time in a very in a process that people are in a war with prices and not pay attention in their brands? What would you say to those brewers?
Yeah, we're seeing challenges right now like that in the United States, where everything has become more expensive. The shelves are very crowded. You're having to compete. Right now we're telling breweries to think about ways that they can continue to innovate. So if your beers that you are offering right now are not selling, what can you adapt into that is selling? So looking at the marketplace in terms of trends and the flavor profiles that consumers are looking for. Now, the message isn't stop making beer and make something else, but if you can diversify in order to allow your business to continue to be successful so that you can still make that beer, that is a good thing. And so we have to think about innovation again. Innovation is what started craft beer in the first place. Now that it's more competitive, how can we continue to innovate and create something new that consumers are looking for. Again, it's all about the customer. It's not just what you want to make. It needs to be the people that you're trying to sell to.
All right. There's something else that you want to say?
I just want to say that, it's been incredible to come to Brazil and see the unique flavors and ingredients that are accessible to the Brazilian craft beer community. And I think that that's something unique for the Brazilian brewers to harness and utilize. You can define Brazilian beer as something different than U.S. craft beer, than the U.K. or the Belgian or the German beers. Brazil has always been a major beer country. Some of the largest companies that make beer in the world are based here in Brazil. But emerging, we have this incredible craft beer community of Brazilian brewers that have unique ingredients, fruits, spices, even yeasts to make new flavors. And I want to hear more about the stories of those unique flavors and innovations that are coming out of Brazil as we see Brazil become a more recognizable craft beer community, not just in South America, but in North America, Europe, and Asia, and all of that. And so we hope to be a part of that conversation as we share our knowledge and information. And so perhaps there's some opportunity to collaborate and make some beers together.
All right. Can I ask you one more question?
Of course.
It's I didn't ask you about how do you deal with the big companies? How is the relation between the craft beer market with the InBev or Heineken? How are you leading? Are you leading with them?
Yeah, I think our position has always been one of we try to differentiate, but not denigrate. We want to show that there is a difference for craft beer, but we don't want to talk poorly about the largest brewers. The beers that they create are very difficult to produce, and the fact that they do it on such a large scale and such a consistent basis is incredibly impressive. And when it comes to the work we do at the Brewers Association, at the government affairs level, in working with our governments, but also in producing technical resources on quality brewing, draft line management, raw material research, the big brewers are an important part of that conversation. They have financial resources and technical knowledge that contribute to those efforts. And so the goal is not to make enemies, but we want to tell the story of the unique craft brewers that exist within the United States. The largest brewers are members of the Brewers Association. Budweiser and Coors are members. But we have a craft brewer definition that defines what a craft brewer is. Now, that's very useful for telling the story of what craft beer is. As we travel to other countries, nobody really knows how to define what a craft brewer is. In the U.S., it's a very clear and distinct definition. But that does not exist to say one thing is good and one thing is bad. That exists, again, so we can tell the story, but also in our organizational structure, we have a board of directors that provides guidance on what the Brewers Association is supposed to do. Only the craft brewers have a vote for what the Brewers Association is doing. The big brewers are involved and they can communicate, but the voting rights only go to the smallest brewers because they don't have access to the same types of resources, access to the markets financially. And so our focus has always been first on the small and independent brewer, but you cannot disregard the largest brewers in the industry because they're important and they've always been around and they're going to continue to be around. And when it comes to right now in the U.S., it's less about craft beer and big beer. It's more about beer versus wine and spirits where the competition is. And so we need to work with everybody within beer to make sure that beer is going to continue to succeed.
All right. Well, thanks a lot again for your time. Sorry again about my English. And
next time I will speak some Portuguese.
Okay. So, yes. Então, pessoal, muito obrigado para quem acompanhou até aqui. Espero que vocês tenham gostado. De novo, desculpa aí, meu inglês a gente não estava preparado, não tinha sido combinado essa entrevista. Mas eu sou cara de pau, né? Então foi que foi. Eu acho que deu certo. Vocês vão seguir. Espero que vocês gostem. Saúde e até a próxima.